All right, I would like to attempt a reading of this poem, and I'm not exactly sure what the title of this poem is, but it may occur to me as I discuss, how this poem came to be made, why it came to be made, and how a similar poem can be made. I guess the most obvious thing, first of all, is that it's mesostic. That's should be obvious from the line that runs vertically down the center, a realm of paradise, and that of course is the title of a Anthony Perrogue piece of music, and which is from Nepenthe. And I was looking at this is not actually not no this is not from Nepenthe. Sorry, I was looking at the album Nepenthe, and the reason that I was looking at the album Nepenthe is because this word in Greek, it means a remedy of forgetfulness, or it's a drug. Is basically this idea of a nepenthe is a drug that induces forgetfulness, particularly forgetfulness regarding some grief or sorrow or trouble, and I suppose that the idea, and why I began looking at this album by Anthony Perrogue and thinking about it in the first place was because I had been wanting to take a break, following the great loss of our election, and the disappointment and the grief and sorrow, that some of us feel that an individual who is so capable of toxic male violence and stochastic terrorism was actually elected a second time here in the United States, really assaulting in many ways our understanding, some of our understandings of America as a democracy, as a place of sanctuary for, as in the poem, about the Statue of Liberty, those tired, hungry, and in search of in search of some place, right, in which like they can realize the dreams of freedom. And I'm referring to immigrants in particular, but the rest of us as well, in this ideal of democracy that never really existed in America, but we still cling to as a possibility of the progress of our ideas. So I had been thinking about doing something with one of the pieces from Nepenthe, in order to grant some temporary freedom from, I suppose, the trauma of the realization that Americans, those of us who live in the United States, the majority of Americans who voted, do not desire freedom, do not essentially desire democracy, and that dream of inclusiveness, which is important, for those of us who have ever been excluded for one reason or another, whether that reason is the imaginary construct of race, or the imaginary construct of disability, or the imaginary construct of gender hierarchy, or the imaginary construct of something else. And for those of us who have been excluded, due to or because of such imaginary constructs, the nature of their imaginary nature is probably somewhat clearer to us than it is to others, who have enjoyed the benefits of such exclusive policies. And the monetary and other rewards that those policies of exclusion might grant them. So yeah, I guess it begins with the idea. Began with thinking about what we were going to do next, following this revelation of the casualness with which voters in the United States can do away with or discard the ideals of democracy, and as I said, so looking at Anthony Perogue's Nepenthe as a potential source of a piece of music that I might use, and of course I did use a piece from a musical piece from Nepenthe, and that was Ripples of Light, and I liked the idea of like this ripples of light relates in various ways to other things that we've done, including the healing waters in reference to particular angels that preside over the waters of healing, and there's an angel who appears in Angels in America, and that particular angel has a statue in Central Park, which is significant to Tony Kushner's Angels in America, and the healing waters in particular film relate in many ways to the particular situation and context of the AIDS crisis in that moment, but in other ways too. And if you know the piece, you'll know that Roy Cohen is one of the individuals who contracts AIDS, and he of course has for a long period of time denied that he was homosexual, and presented himself within this very staunchly conservative and oppressively patriarchal community, and supported and fostered these values of patriarchy that include having this very negative relationship to the idea of sexual openness in any way, shape, or form. And so all of this sort of denial and self-hatred is referred to in relationship to these healing waters, and that angel Bethesda and that fountain is in some way a very different kind of elixir, I suppose, than a Nepenthe, but it's a kind of healing liquid, a kind of cleansing. I guess the healing agency of the waters of Bethesda are different from the healing capacity of a Nepenthe in that they truly heal, right? And if one is afflicted and one is blessed, by this angel, in this pool, then the affliction goes away. And of course, at this point, it seems difficult to imagine that a system, and a belief, the idea of democracy and the idea of sanctuary, a nation of sanctuary and freedom, it has been, dealt, so much damage within the last years that it's difficult to imagine that there can be, a remedy that even an angel, can preside over and provide a blessing for. And so I suppose that's all in the background, thinking about that, and and looking into this, idea of of merely, a respite, from these difficult times that led me to this album, and then as I said, the ripples of light reminded me of the dancing light upon the waters of either this particular pool that Bethesda presides over, or of the healing powers of the Archangel Raphael, like, who is also associated with both healing and with the element of water, and we have representations of that idea in other videos as well. So all of that probably influenced my selection of that musical piece. But in terms of selections for the material of the poetry, and in looking at Anthony Pirog, I came across this piece called and it's worth listening to. I'll try to put something up that actually presents the material of that song. It's worth listening to. It's a really beautiful piece. It's called a realm of a realm of paradise, and then this title, it reminded me of a number of things. I mean, you can't if you're a poet, and you're presented with the word paradise, you can't help but think of Paradise Lost, the great John Milton epic poem, Paradise Lost, and then that takes you to why and how paradise was lost, for John Milton, and what the allegory of that story means, for him as a political figure in England, in his time, in which it doesn't seem possible to us today, but being a Puritan was once a revolutionary activity. Now it's we think of it as counter-revolutionary idea, the idea of the puritanical, but for Puritans in England at that time, and they were persecuted by the British monarchy because they were anti-monarchists, right? And so you can't help but think of Paradise Lost and this whole idea of paradise being lost and perhaps regained, or the impossibility of it being regained. And then that ties into our political situation now too. Once lost, can this even if it is a false image and false dream of paradise, in our democracy, and in the idea of our progress, and the idea of this fraternal and egalitarian, right, democracy and space for liberties of all kinds, can that ever be regained, and what would that mean? It also reminded me of my former teacher. He's passed away, Jerome Rothenberg's poem A Paradise of Poets. And whatever irony might represent to me, having been in many ways never a real citizen of the community of poets that Jerry so easily belonged to. So it was never a paradise for some of us, and perhaps for some of the reasons that some of us were excluded from other aspects of other paradises, as well, lying, either outside of the privilege of racial position, or of ableist position, or of gender position, or of sexual position, or what. Sexual position sounds like something I don't mean it to mean, but positionality is a better word, right? Like lying outside of those positionalities, the privileged positionalities, may be another, and not I guess, existing outside of that privilege in poetry, in certain ways, relates to, at least in, from my point of view, a certain kind of way of doing things differently because of certain, differences in cognitive ability, but also in cognitive limitations that I've talked about, pretty much endlessly in over the last few years in the, I think we're approaching 2,100, videos. I'm not sure how close we are coming to that, but it's over 2,000. So, the irony, in relationship to both, I guess, of those, or maybe not both, maybe all of those, associations with paradise. Jerry's poem of poets, Milton's poem of innocence, right? Because it's really innocence that's lost, isn't it, in the Garden of Eden? I mean, that's the idea. And if you go from innocence to knowing, or innocence to anagnoresis, the not knowing, because they don't know, right? And then they go into the state of not knowing, which is knowing, I guess, knowledge. And that represents, in his understanding, puritanical understanding, and the loss of innocence. Of course, Blake plays on that. So I'm already thinking of all of these, kind of romantic poets and Baroque poets like Milton, and this, somewhat, archaic, realm, and references to the archaic as they come up in Percy Shelley and others. And I want to utilize, this phrase, from the Anthony Perot, a realm of paradise, and then the idea of, and this is from the album 5 Times Surprise, so I'm not sure what the 5 Times Surprise might be in relationship to the construction of this piece, but the title itself also, in a weird way, kind of reminded me of this Nagisa Oshima film called In the Realm of the Senses, and it's certainly no paradise, that particular narrative. And although in a way it's interesting because it's all about sexuality and the darkness of sexuality, but extreme, extreme pleasure in the realm of the senses, and the realm of the senses relates to paradise in a way that it doesn't relate to, well, for some of us, perhaps not to Dante, but the realm of the senses relates to this idea of paradise, at least as we distinguish these words in English, in a way that it doesn't relate, to the idea of heaven, which is this virtuous space, free of the encumbrances and problematics of the realm of the senses. So the realm of paradise, was already distinct in my mind from, this idea of the realm of the heavenly, or of the divine, and paradise in that sense was sort of, given in this assumption that I had of American democracy and freedom, and in the Declaration of Independence as well, in which were provided the opportunity for life, which now we're not provided for anymore. Following our embrace of fascism, for life and liberty, which of course we're also not, allowed anymore, and the pursuit of happiness. And I suppose that pursuit of happiness, belongs to the realm of the senses, in a certain sense, in a certain way, right? And could be described as a kind of reaching, for paradise. And when that's lost, and one is no longer allowed that reaching, again, this question arises: is it possible, to regain that paradise? So that's kind of an explanation for everything I was thinking about, and what went on, in terms of making the piece. And then in terms of the material elements and another procedure that went into it, I just looked for like relatively famous and familiar poems that included the word paradise. Obviously, the most obvious one is Milton, Paradise Lost, but then there's a bit of Shelley in there, and there's some Emily Dickinson, and a few other poets, and there's Allen Ginsberg in here from Howell, like an unlikely source, but the word paradise occurs in relationship to Paradise Alley, which is right here. I'll perform a little bit of a close-up here. Now, and what I did with all of the words paradise in this poem, since we already have referenced the word paradise in the Mesostic and the source, right? The root, for the way that these lines would be organized. Rather than, I found lines that included the word paradise, but then I substituted for each sample that word with the title of the poem. So, for example, in this first line, what largeness thinks in a lover's complaint was son. It's the line as it exists is what largest thinks in paradise was son, and the lover's complaint is the title of the poem. So for every example of paradise that I found in a relatively famous or familiar poem, I substituted the title of that poem for the word paradise. And so then this ruled out the possibility of selecting certain examples with one exception, and that's the last piece, which the last piece is called The Earthly Paradise. And the selection that I took it from was the prologue to The Earthly Paradise. Now, the rule, that I implemented along with all of the other restrictions in creating the Mesostic was that this poem that used the word paradise should not have the word paradise in its title. And as I said, the exception for that was The Earthly Paradise and the prologue to The Earthly Paradise. So this last line actually reads, so with this paradise it is. So, excuse me. So that becomes, so with this prologue to the earthly paradise, right? It is this, or so. So I guess actually what the line is, so with this earthly paradise it is, but the title is Earthly Paradise, and so it raises sort of paradoxical problem of reincorporating into it within this infinite regress series, right? So I violate the rule there, but other than that, I intentionally avoided these poems that utilized the word paradise, but also included paradise in the title, so that I could substitute, the title of the poem I could substitute paradise with the title of the poem. So the easiest example to recognize, if you're familiar with Allen Ginsberg's Howl, is who ate fire in paint hotels or drank turpentine in Paradise Alley, death, or purgatoried, that's an interesting use of purgatory as a verb, or purgatoried their torsos night after night. I'll read that again because I kind of got flustered by the use of the verb. Who ate fire in paint hotels or drank turpentine in Paradise Alley, death, or purgatoried their torsos night after night, becomes who ate fire in paint hotels or drank turpentine in Howl Alley, because that's the title of the poem, and on with the rest, right? Okay. That would be dark. Endymion. Oh, I guess I need one more mythological clarification before I go on, or it might be useful. This is you can consider this a footnote. If you don't know who the figure of Endymion is in Greek mythology, and I think this etymologically, this word comes from a Greek word that means to clothe or something like that, or to cover or to clothe, which is interesting. But this individual falls in love with Selene, and this is the moon goddess. And there's a couple of variations on the story. She either loves how beautiful he is as a young man so much that she asks Zeus to allow him, never to age. And then Zeus, sort of cosmic irony, casts a spell on Endymion that he sleeps eternally, right? And she comes to him at night while he's sleeping and makes love to him in his sleep. And this is the moon, or Selene, the moon goddess. And then I think the other version of the story is that she found him so beautiful sleeping that she asked, Zeus to do this, and he grants her this favor, and he sleeps, and remains youthful, eternally, and she still comes to him at night, and makes love to him as he sleeps, and dreams, in dreams, and so this idea is like of dreaming again, like comes back, to this. Nepenthe, drug of forgetfulness, and he's sort of in this permanent state of forgetfulness, and I suppose that to me gives a darker feel to the idea perhaps of rest from right of falling asleep and away from the reality of the day that Nepenthe, the drug of forgetfulness, grants us this kind of dreamy forgetfulness. But that's a matter of interpretation. So I think all of that having been said, I think we can attempt a reading of the poem. What largeness thinks in a lover's complaint was son, which laves the walls of divine revelation on high. Dark Endymion, where pale becomes the bloom. Who ate fire in hotels or drank turpentine, in Howl Alley, death or purgatory their torsos, night after night. Through every triumph of life, all glory was babbling out of everlasting mercy. As on that day when first what largeness thinks in a lover's complaint was song, stream which laves the walls of divine revelation on high. And if I speak of a portable paradise, dark Endymion, where paradise lost and Eden's happy plains, who ate fire in what I cannot hotels reach, or drank turpentine of dreams in Howl Alley, death all our or own. Purgatory their torsos of Odysseus' decision among the olive trees. Through every triumph of life and through all glory was babbling out of the everlasting mercy. Seem all as on that day when first in persuasion know, to float upon the perfumed stream of some voluptuous paradise. And if I speak of a portable what largeness thinks in a lover's paradise lost and Eden's happy plains, which laves the walls of divine revelation on high, is found of dreams dark and Endymion, where pale becomes the bloom. The lutes of who Odysseus ate fire in paint hotels or drank turpentine, dumped down in Howl Alley, death and purgatory and their torsos, seem all of Sunday's morning that we shall know. Through every triumph of life and through all glory was babbling out of the everlasting paradise, as on that day when first in persuasion to float upon the perfumed stream of some voluptuous Paris. And if I speak of what largeness thinks in a lover's complaint, paradise song, lost and Eden's happy which laves plains, the walls of divine revelation on high, what I cannot reach is found of dark Endymion, and love, where pale and all our own. The who ate fire in paint hotels or drank turpentine, in Howl Alley, death we are, or purgatory their torsos, the earth night seem all of Sunday's morning that we shall know. Through every triumph of life, and so with this glory was babbling out of the everlasting to the earthly paradise, as on that day when first in persuasion to float upon the perfumed stream of some voluptuous Paris. And if I speak of a portable paradise, of paradise lost and Eden's happy plains, there heaven in what I cannot reach is found, of dreams and love and all our own. The lutes of Odysseus' decision among the olive trees, dumped down in the home stretch we are, and happy, and shall the earth seem all of Sunday's morning that we shall know? So with this earthly prologue to the earthly paradise, it is.